Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday. I hope it's a good one for you guys. Back at it with yet another video, and we're going to take a look at this up and coming full moon in the sign of Taurus. Now, if you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Very excited to talk about this full moon. I feel like it's just riddled with so many Venusian themes, and I think it's going to be really important to really unpack the full meaning of what this full moon is going to bring us. Obviously, it's taking place on November 5th, 2025. I'm here in Central Texas, so it's going to be happening around 7:19 a.m. I know we've got people all over the world, so you may have to adjust your time zone to see exactly what time this full moon is hitting. But it'll be taking place at 13 degrees. So if you have anything between 12 and 14 degrees of Taurus, whether it's a personal planet, sun, moon, rising, or if it's on an angle, if you're a fixed sign, you're going to be feeling the effects of this particular full moon. That is obviously going to be my Leos, my Scorpios, and my Aquarius risings. So you guys want to pay attention if you have any degrees there. But a full moon we see once a month. It's basically in astrology, a full moon really represents like a culmination or a completion phase where we're releasing and also illuminating something that we've been working on for the better part of the last 6 months. Now, full moons are known to be emotional. They definitely bring matters to a head, and they highlight what needs to be let go of or completed. So we can see big kind of conclusions, big kind of endings, and wrapping things up. Obviously, emotions do peak during a full moon, and there's often a sense of release because of that opposition to, in this case, the sun in Scorpio. And what it's doing is it's trying to find the balance between the sun and the moon's kind of energies, and this is really encouraging because of the opposition, integration of opposing forces. So I see this as like a time for gratitude. It's also a time for reflection and really shedding what no longer serves us. And this often manifests as a sense of like highlighted awareness of closures of ongoing cycles. I like the moon in Taurus, it's exalted there. Obviously, there's a very strong kind of Venusian energy whenever we're dealing with Taurus or Libra. And we're going to see a lot of that highlighted in the aspects when I get into it. Now, in a nutshell, Taurus, the second sign of the Zodiac, fixed Earth, which is ruled by Venus, is connected to stability. This could be financial matters, it could be material possessions, values, self-worth, sensuality, and obviously connections to nature because it's an earth sign. Now, this sign in particular governs finances, resources, and the physical body, as well as comfort and persistence. As a fixed sign, Taurus really embodies reliability, but it can also indicate that there is some stubbornness and resistance to change. Especially with the Taurus moon here, we become very emotionally tied to our creature comforts, our security. We can find that a lot of our emotions are wrapped up in our financial situation or even in self-esteem matters. So when we see a full moon in Taurus, I think the one thing that's positive here is that we're kind of playing with home field advantage. We do have the moon in an exalted sign, and obviously the themes of a full moon here is going to be really emphasizing releasing attachments to material security. Maybe we find ourselves in the next week or so reassessing our personal values, making some changes with how we're eating, how we're budgeting, and really trying to find the balance and abundance versus excess. This full moon is really inviting us to kind of ground into the physical world, and it's about letting go of possessiveness. And this is really about fostering appreciation for simple pleasures, beauty, self-care, and themes are going to definitely include financial culminations. Big themes revolving around food, resources, security, as well as banking. But many of us are going to find that we are really focusing on healing issues relating to our appearance, our body image issues, and focusing on stabilizing relationships through trust as well as sensuality. Now, we will see the full moon come in at 13 degrees. So if you guys follow degree theory like I do, 13s always correlate, as do 1s, with the energy of Aries. So it has this kind of like, initiatory, bold, reactive type of energy. So there can be like a knee-jerk reaction that comes in with this full moon that's like, this is mine, or I have to take what's mine, or focusing on my actions or my security. So it'll amplify impulsiveness, impulsive spending, it'll also bring up themes revolving around leadership when it comes to money and resources, and sometimes to an extreme. And we'll find that it's really marking points of action and breakthrough when it comes to financial situations. So for the full moon in Taurus at this degree, it's infusing the typically steady, kind of like easygoing nature of the Taurus moon with this sense of fiery urgency and pushing for decisive releases in areas that are connected to security and values. Now, potentially this could lead to some sudden shifts or assertive kind of beliefs in regards to our self-esteem and our self-worth. I do think at 14 degrees, for the Sabian symbol, it's a little bit of like a different flavor. It's a softer kind of Sabian. And the Sabian symbol for 14, because we round up, is going to be on a beach, children play with shellfish, and they're at the edge of the water. So this particular Sabian symbol really, it evokes like themes of innocent exploration. It's also about emergence from the subconscious, because that's what the water is connected to. And it's about revitalization through simple joys and just learning how to kind of play and connect and create with nature. So it's about this interplay between playful creativity, obviously the children, and like the instinctive tendency to kind of like, you know, want to kind of collect things or pick things up. And it also talks about growth and nourishment that comes from the sea. So it suggests that this is a full moon that's really about returning to basics for renewal. One thing I really like about Taurus is I feel like it's a very resourceful sign. You know, a lot of people who have strong, you know, second house placements or Taurus placements, they know how to make a lot from very little. Cooking from scratch, being able to take what, you know, supplies and things that you have and like learning how to create like a big, you know, bounty or meal that can be very nourishing. So I think for this full moon, it's encouraging us to kind of release the sense of like overcomplicated attachments by embracing being creative, listening to our intuition, maybe having a little bit more childlike wonder, grounding in nature, and allowing the intuitive process whenever it comes to matters of security and wealth. So it will be illuminating paths for abundance for some signs. And this is really about abundance through kind of playful, organic evolution rather than feeling like we have to force something. Now, this full moon was actually seeded back in April of 2025. So let me show this to you guys. We're going to kind of go back in time here for a little bit. Sorry, I'm playing with my marker. And that way you guys get an idea of where all of this started. And it was a pretty interesting new moon back then. It had some gnarly aspects to it, to say the least. So around April 27, 2025, we had the new moon that was in Taurus. It was obviously at 7 degrees, so it was a relational new moon. So it was about our relationships to something, someone, some situation, also a relationship to food, a relationship to money, a relationship to the earth. Venus was just coming out of her retrograde that really started in Aries, and it retrograded back into Pisces. And Venus was actually conjunct Saturn and the North Node. So a lot of it was about what we're giving, what we're helping, who we're helping. Pisces can be dealing with, you know, people who are, you know, dealing with homelessness, or people who are in need if they were dealing with mental issues or immigration things. That was very much kind of tied to this particular new moon. And you'll see a lot of the culminations to this that's going to be kind of coming up now. So where we have a tendency to be too self-sacrificial, maybe financially or emotionally in relationships, where we're investing ourselves in things, we're working really hard for things, but we don't see some of like the hidden blockages or the limits when it comes to how much we can grow, how much love and support and abundance we can have. The gnarly aspects stem more from the fact that the new moon wasn't a square to Mars in Leo, so there was definitely a lot of like impulsiveness, and there was a lot of conflict maybe that was kind of coming up when it comes to Leo topics. Expenses relating to children, expenses relating to you know, gambling or things revolving around taking risks, or even the stock market. And we also saw an opposition between Mars and Pluto, and a square between the new moon and Pluto in Aquarius. So obviously going into the new year, there's been this huge kind of financial focus with, well, how can we get ahead? How can we make more? How can we make our dollar maybe stretch a little bit more? And I think it's really incentivized a lot of people to start really reevaluating their values, their budgeting, where they're kind of maybe spreading themselves too thin when it comes to extracurricular stuff, entertainment, and needing to get like a good grip on what we need for security and working out of some of these kind of power struggles that are maybe coming up, economically, but also I think personally when it comes to relationships and money. So it was not an easy one. I liked that we had Venus in its exaltation. I liked that we had the moon there as well. I feel like it was symbolizing that through some of the pressure we'd experience in 6 months' time, yes, we'd have to make some personal sacrifices, but it would actually teach us to be more resourceful. So people who are like canning their food, people who are making food from scratch, maybe going back to eating whole food diets, growing their own food, that could have definitely been a lot of themes for a lot of people. And then this is going to now lead us to what is now the full moon in Taurus, and it's taken about 6 months to see this come full circle. Now, I think that if we were planting seeds 6 months ago that were going to be positive, that was going to lead to better security, maybe we've been nurturing our self-value a little bit more and manifesting tangible goals under pressure, well, I think you're gonna find that this is a full moon that's going to be quite rewarding. Because now that it's culminating, it's really saying, okay, it's bringing those seeds of intention to release. And it's also going to be highlighting where we've had progress or blocks in financial stability, personal resources, and anything that deals with pleasure. So whatever was initiated in a grounded kind of Venusian energy now is reaching its peak, and it's going to be really urging an evaluation of the growth that we've been experiencing since the spring. Now, when we have this full moon in Taurus, it is going to be at 13 degrees. So that's the second decan of Taurus. So even though Taurus is ruled by Venus, each sign has a particular decan that goes for about 0 to 10 degrees. So it splits up to about 30 degrees total. This is sub-ruled by Mercury. Okay, so that's like a Virgo kind of influence, which is going to be blending Taurus's earthly stability with a more kind of analytical, detail-oriented, practical side. So this decan is really emphasizing resource management, right? Budgeting, how much are we spending, how much are we making, and also expenses relating to Virgo themes. How much are we spending going and getting our hair or our nails done? Or how much are we spending on, healthcare, childcare, anything revolving around also overworking, because the South Node's in Virgo, and whether or not we're kind of feeling like we're making enough, or if we're tying too much of our self-worth to numbers in a bank account. So it's going to be really emphasizing resource management. It's also about craftsmanship, a fine eye for details with this decan. And it's also about being discerning when it comes to the material world. So for this full moon, it's going to amplify themes of this practical release because the South Node is in Virgo. It's trining the South Node in Virgo, and it's about letting go of insufficient and inefficient possessions or habits while illuminating ways to refine self-worth through meticulous service-oriented actions. Now, some ritual ideas that I would have for this moon is number one, work with anything relating to earth, right? So a simple kind of like Taurus ritual would be, are we cooking? Are we going and sourcing quality food and vegetables? Are we connecting to the planet? Whether that's harvesting a garden, this is obviously harvest time. It can also be directly connected to anything revolving around working with herbs. Aromatherapy is good for Taurus, as well as anything connecting to like crystals or gemstones or jewelry, if that's something you want to wear or kind of carry on you. But I would really recommend a grounding meditation. If you're somewhere where the weather permits, maybe sitting outside. If you can, do it with bare feet and just connect to the elements and really visualize releasing any financial fears into the ground while affirming abundance. Super simple, super easy, very powerful under this particular full moon. You can also consider creating an abundance jar. I love doing this. I'm like one of those who collects all like the bottles and the jars and I never want to give them up. So if you're like that, find one that you like. Maybe write gratitude for current resources on slips of paper. Add any Taurus aligned items. So you can put coins in there, you can put flowers, you can put herbs, and maybe seal it under the full moon with a little bit of dripping wax and put it somewhere that's going to be connected to abundance in your home. So if you have an altar or if you want to put it, above a fireplace or anywhere that's going to kind of help keep that full moon energy of feeling stabilized and having the necessary resources as a kind of like a magical reminder. I also like the idea of doing an earth offering. So if you want to plant a seed or if you want to like bury a list of attachments that you want to let go of, you can actually neutralize that by putting it in the dirt. So we want to invoke Taurus's kind of nurturing energy for growth And remember, it's in opposition to the sun in Scorpio, which is kind of talking about fertilizing, releasing, purging, detoxifying, and how we're able to transform our resources in an emotional way. Cord cutting can be really powerful under a full moon, and I think that that's something else that I would consider for those of you guys who feel like you need it. You can use a candle, preferably green for Taurus, to kind of cut ties to any material dependencies. And it's also focusing on this energy of like a Venusian balance and feeling whole and complete without feeling like you have to be attached to someone or something. Now, I definitely recommend working with crystals for this full moon, or if you have any like gemstones you want to keep in your pocket, your purse, your book bag, or if there's something that you want to wear, I think particularly around the neck, that can be really positive for Taurus. Obviously, that's the part of the body that rules. Emerald, whether it's raw or if it's something that's like a precious stone, enhances prosperity, and it's also about heart healing and loyalty. And this is a sign that's connected to Taurus, but something simple like rose quartz, because it does promote self-love and it is connected to Venus, and it's great for emotional security and Venusian harmony, as well as green aventurine. I like that because it attracts abundance. It's good for luck in finances and grounding. You can also consider working with pyrite. I love that for abundance, or putting pyrite next to like a lodestone or even a magnet can be good for, bringing in more, I think, luck when it comes to finances, and helping obviously foster a better sense of self-worth. And you can't go wrong with adding clear quartz to the mix, because it's going to amplify any of the intentions that you're setting for stability. Now, when I work with Taurus lunations, I like working with herbs as well, because this is a sign that's connected to the senses. So whether it's something that you're adding to, your flavor profile if you're cooking, or if you're going to be maybe working with like aromatherapy, or maybe you're making teas. I like for Taurus using thyme, because it's grounding and it helps promote courage when it comes to releasing attachments and purification, which I think can be really helpful during this particular full moon. Sage is good also for clearing spaces and stagnant energy, and it promotes better security. Rose is connected to obviously heart healing, love, relationships, abundance, emotional balance, and it has that association with Venus. And I love cedar or patchouli, especially if you're doing any like magic work revolving around money manifestation. Throwing a little bit of rose petals, some patchouli, and some cedar onto like a candle, or putting it in a jar with a crystal to infuse is wonderful, because it's very earthy and it's about manifesting wealth and also kind of feeling a little bit better grounded. So just some ritual ideas for you guys. Let me know if there's something that I missed or I kind of left out, or maybe how you're planning on celebrating or ritualizing this full moon. Now, the predictions that I have obviously are going to vary sign by sign. So if you guys stay tuned for just a few more minutes, I'll take you through the 12 rising signs and talk about where this is happening for you. But for the collective, I think we are going to see some tensions in relationships and values that are going to be surfacing. And a lot of that's due to the complexity of the cardinal T-square that we're going to see. This is about pushing the collective healing around wounds of independence versus partnerships. I do think we can see some breakthroughs in financial systems or environmental issues. There can be sudden innovations. Obviously, we'll see a Mars-Uranus opposition that will really be disrupting norms. There can also be some spiritual confusion that's going on, or some money confusion or relationship confusion, because Venus is actually going to be making an inconjunct or a quincunx to both Saturn as well as Neptune in Pisces. So we have to watch for like disillusionment in ideals, or red flags in relationships, or idealizing people. I think the trines to the South Node and the sextile to the North Node is about really encouraging us to release anything that is kind of holding us back, and also it's connecting to focusing on compassion. So putting it all together, this is a time of expansive growth, obviously with the moon here, but we are going to see that it's kind of tempered by excess warnings, overdoing it, overspending, over obsessing, with the potential for shifts in healthcare, resources, banking, and anything revolving around emotional security and food. Taurus is very much connected to food. Personally, I think that individuals might feel that there is a sense of heightened sensitivity around their self-worth, definitely more focused on finances and creature comforts. I think that the releases could manifest as, for some people, ending toxic attachments and really reevaluating spending habits, body-related insights, and that T-square is definitely going to bring up personal wounds in relationships. And it's about healing that through boundary setting, while innovative energy is going to be sparking more changes in our routines. So expect emotional peaks around values, urging balance between indulgence and practicality. Now, you guys know me, I tell you that not all new and full moons are created equal. And I can see a lot of what was seeded 6 months ago under that new moon in Taurus, that there was a lot of pressure that was being put on us to learn maybe to focus on our own sense of values, to not risk or gamble money that we don't have, to not feel like we have to compare ourselves to other people and kind of keep up with the Joneses, and certainly not letting numbers in a bank account or money determine our value. And I think that's really what the key of it was. Lots of pressure that we saw with that new moon in April. This time around, I think really, even though the full moon is in Taurus, okay, and I don't want to take away from that, similar to what happened with the last new moon, the new moon that seeded this, Venus was kind of the star of the show, right? She was conjunct Saturn, she was conjunct Neptune, she'd come out of a retrograde, she was exalted. So there was a really strong Venus, and we see that again because Venus is actually in her home sign, the other sign that she's connected to, Libra. So that's like the saving grace here, okay? That's the positive, is that Venus is in a sign where she can really express her energy in a natural form. With the full moon, we always see the sun and the moon in opposition to each other, okay? So that's the two opposing forces, and the sun in Scorpio is talking about change, purging, purification, debt, anything revolving around money that's given, and the impact that that has on our personal finances and security, Taurus. So it's really about releasing material security to embrace transformation and shared resources, where we have to chip in, we have to do more, we have to be more focused on what we can build, what we can achieve. Now, Venus is the ruler here, and she's sitting at 28 degrees. So that is a degree that deals with Cancer. So it's going to be about home, family, property, resources, family relationships. And it's emphasizing harmony and partnerships and aesthetic values. Taurus is more naturally beautiful, right? They can wake up in the morning and look great even with bedhead and no makeup on. They are about being in touch with their natural essence, and that what is almost simplified is almost preferred and even more beautiful. Venus in Libra is more putting the lipstick on the pig. It's like, okay, this is not perfect, but we can tweak things, we can change some colors, we can enhance stuff, we can get support from other people, and how we can actually build together. So Taurus is what's mine. Libra is what is ours. What are we doing together? So is the sun in Scorpio. So this is going to be more highlighting relationships, marriages, aesthetic values, and it's really ruling this moon and connecting to a highlighted sense of relational balance and fair exchange when it comes to security matters. Going half on a bill, right? Other people being like, hey, I'm not working, you know, my partner's picking up the slack, or I'm going through a period where I'm having a difficult time, I'm dealing with borrowing or lending. And everybody's gonna be very consumed with what they can get. And there does seem to be a sense of Libra, you know, Venus and Libra being a little disgruntled. She's actually making aspects to all of the outer planets, all of them. So that's very loud when I look at this chart, is every single aspect that she's making. And a lot of them are actually, unfortunately, disharmonious. So if we look at Venus in a nutshell, you know, in Libra, she's going to be like, well, who's helping me? Who's supporting me? And fine, this may be a full moon that you find that people show up right at the nick of time, or you realize that the support you get from a therapist or from a spouse or a business partner or a client can actually be incredibly rewarding and help you feel more so safe and secure. However, Venus is making a square to Jupiter. And I think in like true Taurus fashion, like, you know, when the moon goes through Taurus, people want to eat heartier, richer foods. They want to spend money. They want their, you know, comfortable clothes. So I think of like Venus square Jupiter, that's kind of leading up to this in the beginning of November of overdoing it. Overdoing it in what sense? Well, the square is going to amplify, you know, desires for emotional expansion in relationships, but it's going to warn of overindulgence or unrealistic expectations, and it leads to tensions between harmony and nurturing and excess. Now, Jupiter's exalted, right? We've got Moon that's obviously in a really awesome spot. Venus that's in an awesome spot. So these planets are kind of playing with home field advantage in a way. Like they're going to have a little bit more oomph and strength than they normally would. And Jupiter is associated with the moon because the moon is obviously connected to Cancer, and Jupiter is in that sign. So overspending, overindulging, overly emotional, feeling like maybe we're overjoyed because we have so much support, or we're rich or wealthy in a sense of the relationships and the support that we do have. But I do think that it can bring overeating, overspending, becoming overly fixated or possessive over certain people or places or situations. Venus is also making an inconjunct or a quincunx to Saturn, and this is an uncomfortable energy. They're rubbing each other the wrong way. Obviously, with Venus in conjunct Saturn, it represents like there is like a blind spot, and that we have an inability to get what we want or get what we need. It's also making the same aspect to Neptune. That's a pretty strong. It's about a degree. So that in conjunct represents an adjustment that needs to be made, and it's about some subtle confusion, some subtle limitations, maybe idealizing someone or something when it comes to love or values, and it does dissolve boundaries. So it's urging us to practice a sense of discernment to avoid deception or escapist tendencies in partnerships or relationships. Now, Venus is coming into a square with Pluto. We'll actually see that in the days to follow after the full moon, which can kind of linger for a little bit, guys. And this square to Pluto brings intense power dynamics in relationships to the surface. This is about forcing transformations in values, maybe releasing control issues for innovative, more authentic connections. It can mean that, some of our relationships, we're feeling a little kind of disjointed, and we can have friends that are more critical of our relationship status or more kind of pressure in regards to how we're showing up in our communities or in our friendships. And it does kind of ouch a little bit. You'll see that as Venus is kind of inching into Scorpio a couple days later. On the other end of the spectrum, Venus is also in an opposition to Chiron in Aries. So this is at 24 degrees, this is at 28, this is at 25. So this is a cardinal T-square. So if you happen to have anything between 23 and I would say 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you guys are going to be feeling the pinch of this. This makes Jupiter the focal point of the T-square. I've used the kind of descriptive story of, you're driving along and then you get T-boned and something hits you out of nowhere and you don't see it coming. So, Jupiter is going to make everything feel bigger, more emotional, more expansive, certainly more costly, or maybe higher stakes when it comes to money revolving around home, family, and property. So it's a bit of an ouch as it opposes Chiron. Obviously, Chiron in Aries is about relational wounds when Venus opposes that. And it's about confronting those through independence, vulnerability in partnerships, and that can actually lead to empowerment if we're balancing the we with me, or what's mine with what's ours. If we become too attached or fixated or focused on our situation, we lose the opportunity to connect and really nurture relationships and learn how to build together. With Jupiter being the focal point of that particular square, it's a tense configuration. It's really focusing the energy on Jupiter, which is going to be demanding growth through emotional nurturing, bettering our relationships with our home and our family, as well as the actions that we're taking to work together rather than to feel separate or apart. Now, we will find that resolving oppositions to Chiron, which really deals with our identity, and if we're harmonizing with Venus in Libra through, protective actions, supporting one another, it can actually lead to major breakthroughs when it comes to home or family dynamics. And some of us can feel really overjoyed because we're getting that financial, physical, or emotional support. Now, we will see Venus in conjunct or quincunx Uranus. Saturn and Neptune are conjunct, but Neptune is about 1 degree away from being in Aries. So this is actually making Venus the focal point of a yod, where there's going to be new communication in relationships. Maybe there's going to be some unexpected kind of breakthroughs, people who we thought that weren't going to show us the love, weren't going to support us, weren't going to kind of help us feel grounded, might actually show up and surprise us. And it might be some surprising new characteristics that are stemming through relationships. It could be a new person that comes into your life. It could be also a renewal of an existing one, or a relationship with a family member. Now, I think with the moon coming into an inconjunct with Uranus, with Venus coming into an inconjunct with Uranus, that also says that, if we don't ask, or if we don't reach out, or if we don't kind of keep an open mind, we're missing some of those opportunities to come together. we maybe would then be falling more into the trap of the Saturn-Neptune quincunx, where it's like, well, you know, if we're just holding out and we're not, you know, talking about how we feel, if we're not sharing our concerns, we're not giving other people the chance to kind of support us. And that's really what Venus in Libra wants to do. The moon will be trining the south node in Virgo, which basically means that what will come with this full moon is a sense of ease. We're easing and we're releasing past patterns with Virgo things. Health, right? Certainly productivity, work. Themes also revolving around, you know, detaching, detoxing from what's not healthy. I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on, well, what can I cut from, you know, my diet? Am I getting back to whole foods? Am I incorporating something new? Am I detoxing and cleansing? Certainly the sun in Scorpio likes that. I think that that's quite positive. And obviously the North Node is receiving a sextile from the moon as well, which does kind of say that we have to navigate some of our financial, self-esteem, and kind of like diet-related themes in a more instinctual or intuitive way. Saturn and Neptune might say, well, you know what? I don't want to take the pharmaceuticals. I'd rather get to the root cause. I want to eat, you know, with intention, and I want to nourish my body and consume the things that are going to help me work out of it. Especially Saturn and Neptune could be seasonal depression, sleep-related issues, emotional-related issues, and any issues that's connected to the immune system, because that is Pisces. Lymphatic system, detoxing, all of that stuff can be connected to that. Taurus, full moons, great time to get a massage. If that's something that you're trying to do, certainly talk to your doctor or your practitioners, but lymphatic massage can actually be a really wonderful kind of way to kind of detoxify all the pathways, and it can be supported through aromatherapy or kind of herbal recommendations as well. Now, we will see, I think, what's the most beautiful aspect, and this is very rare, okay, very, very rare. We've got Jupiter that's in a trine with Saturn and Neptune, and it's kind of building from the end of October to the beginning of November. But as you guys are watching this, you know, Mercury and Mars are still in Scorpio. There is a grand water trine. So the sun, I mean, it's loose, but the sun's in Scorpio. It's a wide trine to Jupiter, and it's also a wide trine to Saturn and Neptune. But by sign and element, this is all trining. You're only going to see the Jupiter or Saturn trine basically at the beginning of November until about like the 10th or the 11th. And then we're going to see Jupiter turn retrograde, and we're going to start to lose it. Very emotional, very intuitive, very healing. And I think that this is really kind of saying, like, we have to really be upfront and kind of direct with our emotions. And we have to be really vulnerable and be sharing with people maybe some of the things that we're kind of holding in on the inside. And also, if you feel like there's somebody in your life that's like struggling, or they need more emotional support, or they need more hugs, you know, or financial support, it's also being like, hey, do you need some help? How can I help you? What do you need? Because that's really what Venus is kind of screaming, I think, through quite literally all of the aspects that she's making with the outer planets. The only thing she's not making an aspect to is Mars and Mercury. Now, you guys are watching this before Mars goes into Sagittarius. You're also watching this, if you're watching it in October, before Mercury goes into Sagittarius. So you guys know that Mercury and Mars are going to come into conjunction again. So that'll be happening a couple days after this particular full moon. But with Mercury and Mars conjunct in Sagittarius, really the mental energy is really fusing with action. It's sharpening communication. Yes, there is a risk for impulsive words, for conflicts, for, you know, unplanned travel or education related things. But I think it's ideal for bold ideas. It just cautions against arguments and acting recklessly or impulsively. Now, at the same time, Mercury is in shadow. So some of the things that are kind of coming up right now are going to be reworked in the month ahead when we have Mercury retrograde in November. So knowing that it's in pre-shadow before it turns retrograde, I think it's like around the 9th or the 10th of November, it's signaling, hey, there's about to be some upcoming reviews when it comes to your beliefs. Now, this could be, you know, what you have always believed in, cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, you know, reassessing or reimagining going back to school. It can also be themes revolving around reassessing travel. So miscommunication's kind of brewing. Obviously, it's urging, you know, double checks before the retrograde begins around the 9th. And it's too wide to be in conjunct to Taurus, but I think this is going to have a lot of people double and triple checking their accommodations or thinking and asking themselves, do I have the money to travel over the holidays this year? You know, am I optimistic and kind of maybe too overly optimistic about expenses and things revolving around travel, education? and that kind of stuff as well. Now, something else to consider is Mars is in an opposition to Uranus, and I have yet to do a video on that. It's coming soon. I feel like it needs its own dedicated video, and I saw a couple people asking about it, and I'll talk about it. That's an explosive energy. That's a very explosive energy, with Mercury being in shadow connected to Uranus and Gemini, changes of the mind, changes when it comes to our habits and routines. And Mars is bold, direct action and assertiveness, very confident when it's in Sagittarius and a fire sign. Well, I think the opposition is explosive. There could be, sparking sudden debates or sudden rebellions or innovations in beliefs, and obviously in communication as well. So freedom really urges a clash with expansive actions here, and it can really lead to breakthroughs or potential disruptions. All in all, I think that whenever we're dealing with Venus that's in its home sign or it's exalted, love leads the way. And I really like that Venus is 6 signs away. I mean, that's kind of an uncomfortable angle, but 6 signs away from the new moon, the full moon, excuse me. And this really kind of indicates that, things that we love require work. Whether it's, taking care of a pet, being in a relationship, helping a family member or a loved one, maintaining our health. And maybe we need a little bit of help and support, and maybe a little bit of a sense of feeling that support that's coming from the people in our lives, so that way we can be making healthier decisions when it comes to our values and also our self-esteem. So it's going to be interesting. I can't remember the last time that I saw a lunation where the ruler was making so many aspects in the sky. The only thing she's not connecting to is Mercury and Mars. So we'll see what happens. You guys will have to let me know. But I'm going to take you through the 12 rising signs now. I'm going to talk about where this full moon is taking place in the sign of Taurus in your natal chart. Remember, special attention, 12, 13, 14 degrees of Taurus, sun, moon, rising, or personal planets. Pay close attention to this. It's going to be very personal for you. All right, so I'm a Western astrologer. I practice tropical astrology. I am not a Vedic astrologer. For the purpose of the presentations, when I give you guys the predictions for the rising signs, I always tell you guys, listen to your rising sign first. That's going to tell you exactly where in your life this full moon is taking place. And then take a listen to your sun sign. Obviously, that's more going to be about your ego, your career, your vitality, and your moon sign as well. It's a full moon. So I would listen to all 3. I think that I have just noticed over the years, a lot of what actually happens is my ascendant sign. What I am really feeling that I need is my sun sign, and the full moons really help a lot on the emotional level. So listen to all 3. If you're a Placidus user like me, you just need to go and find where about 13 degrees is, which house it's in, and you might have to listen to a different rising sign to kind of get an idea of where the full moon is taking place. So we're going to start with my Aries and my Aries risings. What's up, Aries? How you guys doing? This is your money moon. So you get one of these once a year where you're having a full moon in your natal 2nd house. Now, a lot of what I've said correlates with you if you're an Aries rising. Obviously, money, resources, self-esteem, that's all kind of the major kind of plot points in the full moon in the 2nd. And it's opposing the sun in Scorpio in your 8th house. So it's highlighting values, maybe releases versus shared resources. So like dealing with taxes, partners' money, inheritance matters, paying debt, paying loans. And sometimes when we see this axis get highlighted, money comes in, money goes out. So what I really want to focus on is the fact that not only is the full moon in the 2nd house where, okay, there could be a big purchase, there could be an indulgence, or you're kind of splurging, or maybe you're focused on security, but the ruler, Venus, is in its home sign in your 7th house. So what that means is that there's going to be a sense of feeling full and richness when it comes to support from allies and other people. It could be you're spending money on a partner, there's a lavish gift, there's an expense, maybe you're feeling like there is some sense of feeling wanted or chosen by another person. And Venus is going to be opposing Chiron in your sign, so this is about letting love in. And whether it's, working with a therapist, a healer, being open with your partner, whatever, Venus will also be coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer. So putting that all together, it's relational wounds that are healing through home and family conversation and expansion. Sure, some of you guys are moving, or you're trying to work on relational issues with roommates or with family members. But I think that you're going to see there's going to be financial culminations or debt resolution. Partnerships may challenge your self-identity a little bit, but I think it's going to lead to emotional growth at home. And I would say try to, ground out your finances. Try to set boundaries in intimacy, but don't isolate yourself and hold yourself back from connecting. And definitely lean on having a stable home or kind of family situation to feel a little bit more secure and supported during the time of the full moon. So let's see what the tarot says for my Taurus and Taurus risings for this, for my Aries and Aries risings for this Taurus full moon. The card that you guys get is the Three of Cups. I love this card. It is talking about celebrations, harmonizing, working together, feeling overjoyed. Cup kind of runneth over energy and like something that you're celebrating. So I'm wondering, like, are you going to have a party? Is there going to be wedding expenses? Is there going to be an anniversary? Is there lavish gifts? There's something like that that's going on. And I feel like you're going to feel rich in a sense of the relationships and the people that you have in your life. And maybe, there's a little bit of splurging or kind of spending on some of these people, but I feel like it's going to be worth it. And likely it's going to be connected to some kind of celebration or event that's coming up. So pretty good card, all things considered with that full moon. Let me know, Aries, what happens. For Taurus and Taurus risings, you guys are the star of the show. You're having a full moon that's going to be hanging out in your sign. And if you're a Taurus rising, it's going to be in your first house. So obviously it's kind of bringing the attention to your body, your appearance, anything revolving around your own personal goals and things that were seeded last year. It is opposing the sun in Scorpio in your 7th house of relationships. So it's illuminating self goals, body, identity, and that versus relationships and partnerships. Now, Venus happens to rule your chart too. So it's been moving through the 6th house, which is about your health habits and routines. Basically for my Tauruses, I think that, moving through there, a lot of it's health related. I think the full moon here is having you connect more to like your mental health and communicating and talking about your feelings and learning more about health and habits. Maybe this means that you're having to work a little bit harder to achieve that or to be diplomatic when it comes to dealing with people at work. And we're going to see that Venus is opposing Chiron in Aries in your 12th house, which is about subconscious and spiritual healing and alone time and how that can lead to better health and habits. And obviously Venus is going to square Jupiter in your 3rd house. So putting that all together, this basically means that Jupiter in the 3rd, your daily routines heal hidden wounds via communication expansion. And I think that for my Taurus risings, obviously you're going to hear, full moon in your 1st house. Okay, yes, some of you guys will find out you're pregnant. That's very possible. Some of you guys may be traveling, right? Because the moon's connected to the 3rd and it's squaring. Some of you guys are getting into a walking routine or a journaling routine. But I think that this is about personal identity release, work health balances are really transforming through relational insights and kind of better mental health and communication. And I would be embracing self-care rituals. I would be reviewing my habits and expanding learning or some kind of emotional reflection practice. So that way you have better emotional release. Taurus, I hope it's a good one for you guys. Let's see what the tarot says for this full moon in your sign. Of course, you guys get the Death card. I laugh because it's like somebody was going to get this. It was going to happen. And that is really highlighting maybe a lot of the polarity of what's going on in your 7th house. Look, you guys are going to have a Mercury retrograde there soon. You're going to have Venus go through there soon, square Pluto. It's obvious that there's a lot of relational shifts and things that are changing, but I look at the full moon in your sign and I'm like, it's about how you're learning to communicate and help embrace some of the changes that's happening in relationships. Whether it's you changing, maybe you're experiencing or seeing some things in relationships partners really aren't aware of, you're learning to talk about it. The Death card is not necessarily a bad card. It's saying that there is going to be some sort of regeneration. So whether it's a transformation in terms of how you communicate, how you think, how you see yourself, or just how you show up in relationships, it looks like something is definitively about to change. Good luck, Taurus. Definitely let me know what happens with that card. Geminis and Gemini risings. What's going on, guys? How you doing? You guys are going to be experiencing the full moon that'll be taking place in the sign of Taurus in your natal 12th house. And truth be told, this is a little bit more quiet. It's a little bit more private and behind the scenes. Obviously, the moon rules money and resources. It's opposing the sun in Scorpio in the house that deals with health habits and routine. And this is really going to be touching on releasing subconscious patterns versus daily duties. Now, Venus is the ruler. It happens to be in your 5th house and a fellow sister air sign. Not bad. I think with the opposition to Chiron and Aries, what it's bringing up is some challenges, maybe in, finding your happiness or your joy, if you're having some relational issues with friends or some kind of social kind of lags. We're also going to see that Venus is going to come into a square with Jupiter in Cancer. And this is about creative joys, healing group wounds through valued expressions. What are you investing yourself in? Okay, you could be spending a little bit more money than usual on dating, creative projects, children, having fun, that kind of stuff. Certainly Jupiter in the 2nd house will have a splurge. And I think that what's going to come up for you guys during the full moon is some kind of spiritual closure, because the 12th house is healing, resting, being behind the scenes, spiritual exploration. And we could find that there could be more themes revolving around what you do in private, what your love life has got going on, what's your imagination like. Are you doing something creative and very visual? It's possible that hobbies transform some of your social dynamics, and it can also help boost your self-esteem as well as your money. So I'd be really meditating under the full moon in Taurus on hidden fears. I'd be nurturing creativity and investing in your own personal resources. All right, so what can we tell Gemini and Gemini rising about this up and coming full moon in the sign of Taurus? What does Gemini need to know? The card that you get is the Hermit card, which is kind of interesting because I feel like that very much is the 12th house, right? It's a Virgo card, but this is about what you do in private and is it healthy, which is so interesting that's very much a combination of Taurus 12th house and the full moon. What are you eating in private? What are you consuming? What are you watching? This is also about taking quiet time to retreat and reflect and really ask yourself what's out of whack when it comes to your habits. Certainly it's safe to say that this can be touching on the South Node in Virgo. We're going to see the trines from the full moon to the South Node. My goodness, what a great time to clean out your closets, right? And then if you're like me, I know I have Virgo in the 12th house. Whenever I go and I clean closets out or whatever, I feel like super stressed out because there's a bunch of stuff everywhere. But then the more that I'm pulling things out and going through things and getting rid of things, it's like therapeutic. It's also like when you move or when you're doing like renovation or construction on your home, the whole house kind of gets stirred up a little bit. And that brings up some stuff subconsciously. If you're working with this willingly and you're going, okay, let's make a game of it, or let's get the kids involved, or let's be creative with how we're going about organizing things and making space, so that way we can have a creative corner, we can have a place where we can have movie night, or maybe it's allowing you to feel that you've dealt with some of the kind of subconscious clutter, you'll be able to embrace joy and I think romance a little bit better. Certainly enjoy your snacks and your creature comforts in bed. I would assume that that's going to be a lot of what this is, and making some time for maybe a romantic night in. Good luck. All right, we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? Certainly you're affected by the full moons, aren't you? You've got the full moon that's going to be in Taurus in your natal 11th house. Obviously, it is really highlighting the 11th house themes, which is going to be friends, allies, and your goals. So social life, parties, gatherings is kind of a theme here. And it's opposing the sun in Scorpio in your 5th house. Now, this is going to be really touching on, group goal releases versus creative self-expression. Ruled by Venus, which happens to be in the late degrees of Libra in your natal 4th house, which is bringing some of the attention not just to friends and gatherings, but also home and family. So think family reunions, family parties, birthdays, celebrations, dinner parties, all that stuff. Maybe your goals revolving around home and family kind of shifting. And Venus is going to oppose Chiron in your 10th house. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I am shifting my focus or my values to family. Maybe it is pulling me away from work or changes with my career or my responsibility out in the world. And it feels a little overwhelming because it's squaring Jupiter in your 1st house. So putting it all together, the squares to Jupiter is bringing up like home and harmony, healing some of your career wounds versus personal expansion. You got to stay on track your health and also your schedule with that Jupiter square. I do predict that there is going to be some changes in your social networks or shifts. It could be, an invite to a party. It could be some big changes in terms of your relationships with people online. Family balances are going to transform your public image and your self-growth. And I see this as growing pains for a lot of you guys. I would advise you to reassess friendships under this full moon in Taurus. ground out through healthy food, decorating the home, anything connected with family, and embracing some type of identity evolution that's likely coming through. Let's take a look and see, what do we need to tell Cancer about this full moon in Taurus? What is the message that you have for them under this full moon? Ooh, the card that I get is the Knight of Cups. Hello, the Knight of Cups. You guys thought you were going to get a magic trick? So this can we talk about you, Cancer. Obviously, the Knight of Cups deals with the water sign. So like Cancers, Pisces, Scorpios. I think of this as being like feeling very overjoyed that you get an invitation to something, or feeling that there's a sense of fulfillment with what you're able to accomplish on the home front. So like I've seen a lot of Cancer risings that are like, I'm moving back home, or we're having a huge family reunion, or so-and-so's getting married, or, you know, we're buying our first house, or we're having a housewarming party. That kind of stuff, right? And it sounds like trivial, but these are some things that are going to be really prominent. That's going to bring you a lot of joy. It's just about learning not to bite off more than you can chew, because it looks like you're going to be inviting a lot of people, or there's going to be a lot of togetherness or a lot of family stuff, and managing your health and also your schedule is going to be so important. And obviously finding the balance between that and out in the world responsibilities like work seems like it can be a little challenging. Relationships will improve. Likely there could be an invitation, or there is an opportunity for a romantic connection under this transit. Leo and Leo rising. What's up, guys? You're going to be doing a full moon in Taurus taking place in your natal 10th house. If you are 13, 14, 15 degrees, be mindful that this full moon is going to be scoring your placements. Obviously, the 10th house deals with your career, your public reputation, your authority. It's very visible when you have a full moon in the 10th house, and it's opposing the sun that's in Scorpio in your 4th house of home and family. Now, the moon represents the 12th house, things that are subconscious, hidden, or things you've been working on behind the scenes. So for my Leos, we're going to find that this is really about career releases versus home foundations. What are you putting out into the world? What accomplishments are you getting at work? Are you changing jobs, getting, you know, a new business off the ground? Are you maybe realizing you have to make a change with your home or your living situation in order to better support your future goals? Now, this is ruled by Venus, which is in your 3rd house of the mind and communication, and it's opposing Chiron and Aries in the 9th. It's also squaring Jupiter in your 12th house. So it looks like there could be some kind of subconscious beliefs, goals, or changes or reevaluations going on regarding what you believe in, what you can achieve, what is possible, where you can kind of travel, where you can spiritually expand. And I think a lot of you guys are really trying to kind of get some career things like up and off the ground. Now, we'll find that communication can heal belief wounds through subconscious exploration or expansion. So think like getting adequate sleep, meditation, some kind of spiritual practice. And I predict that there can be professional culminations. I think that if you've been working hard towards major career status changes over the last 6 months, you may be making a big announcement revolving around your career, especially on social media. Now, ideas will transform your philosophies through some kind of inner healing. So get some alone time and get some rest. Focus on stabilizing your ambitions and nurturing your mind, obviously, and exploring some kind of spiritual growth to help you evolve when it comes to your career and your professional standing. Let's take a look. Always interesting to have a full moon in the 10th house, because it's like I can see there's a lot of stuff that is kind of constantly changing or rearranging here soon with your home. And it's almost like you need to kind of get some stuff going work-wise to be able to better deal with this in the month of November. So what does Leo need to know about this full moon in Taurus? I get the Page of Cups. All right. So obviously watch for water signs, Cancer, Scorpios, Pisces. But this can also be kind of saying this is about some new beginning. Maybe it's a new relationship that's happening professionally. Maybe you get hired for a job, you're doing a collaboration with someone, maybe you have somebody who's kind of guiding you and helping you expand your career. There's like a coach or a mentor. But this can also be talking about children. And so I think about for you guys, like you're about to have a retrograde in your 5th house. So it's a lot of like your responsibility when it comes to children or the future planning of children or family, reconnecting with children, and maybe feeling like part of this is about you feeling like, okay, I have these things I have to do professionally, and there's things I want to put out there, or things that are kind of being like growing, right? Pages can mean that something is not quite ready yet. You're just emotionally tapping into what the future of your career looks like. I would say just be open to whatever changes are coming. Be open to communicating and talking to people and finding ways to collaborate with other people so you can have more stability in your professional life. Good luck. All right, so for my Virgos and Virgo risings, you guys are going to experience a full moon in Taurus taking place in your natal 9th house. If you have anything 12, 13, 14 degrees of Virgo, this will be trining you, so it might be a little bit smoother sailing for you guys. Obviously, the 9th house deals with travel, education, your belief system, legal matters, publishing, that kind of stuff. And it's going to be opposing the sun in Taurus in your 3rd house of communication, the mind, and movement. Now, this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is located in the 2nd house of money, resources, and obviously self-esteem or stability. It will be opposing Chiron in the 8th house of other people's money, exposing wounds connected to vulnerabilities and intimacy and other people's resources. And it will be squaring Jupiter in Cancer in your 11th house. So putting it all together, this is about values, healing, intimacy, wounds via social connections. What you learn about that, where you're traveling to connect with people, maybe you're on a plane, you're planning a trip, you're booking something because there's going to be, family gatherings, or there's going to be events, there's people to go and places to see. And I do think that this is really about healing intimacy wounds through that connection that you have with your friends with the Jupiter square. I predict for the full moon in Taurus for you, Virgo, that there could be major philosophical shifts. Finances that transform through shared resources or group dynamics, but you can also be traveling, planning a trip, investing in education, or indulging a little bit when it comes to culture or taking a course or a class. And I would say it's a good time to be really grounding your worldview and reassessing your self-worth, and obviously networking with other people for support. The moon is also trining the south node, so it's about releasing a sense of maybe being reluctant to travel or reluctant to learn. And it's trying to bring you more of these kind of themes with ease. And I do think that with the upcoming Mercury retrograde, some of you guys are going to be shifting the way that you look at home and family. Maybe some of you guys are going back home to visit families, you're planning travel. Some of you guys are reassessing whether or not you're going to be living, where you want to live, and it's requiring you to kind of keep an open mind when it comes to changes with your finances. So let's see what we can tell Virgo about this full moon in Taurus. What do they need to know? The card that you get is the Three of Wands. I like this card for you. I feel like it's about being bold and adventurous and being willing to take risks. Taurus moon isn't known for that, but certainly the 9th house is. So maybe it's about easing your way into being a little bit more adventurous or open, maybe taking a course or a class or investing in going on a trip somewhere that you've never been before. Being willing to explore, that could be literally or figuratively. So it could be another culture, another belief system, even like another area of study. And do things that are going to be connected to learning about finances, learning about health, learning about food, and learning about art. I think those would be really good areas that you want to touch on while Venus is going through your 2nd house. Good luck, Virgo. All right, Libra and Libra rising. This is your prediction for the full moon taking place in Taurus. Obviously, it'll be happening in your natal 8th house, and the 8th house is about intimacy, vulnerabilities, secrets, other people's money, debts, loans, taxes, and anything that deals with psychological kind of conclusions or completions. Believe it or not, even though it's in your 8th house of other people's money, you play a huge role in this particular full moon, Libra, because the ruler Venus is in your sign. So when we have a full moon in the 8th house and it's opposing the sun in the 2nd of your money and resources, we're going to see intimacy releases versus personal value theme. Now, Venus in your 1st house is basically talking to the fact that it's about self-love. It's going to be about self-transformation as Venus rules the 8th house. It's going to be about getting into balance with yourself. And Venus is in some tricky territory as she is opposing Chiron in your house of marriage and relationships, showing some relational wounds that can be coming up in partnerships. Whether you're trying to kind of really support yourself, if you're not feeling like that support's coming from a partnership, or if somebody is kind of separate from you right now, or you're single, and it's also coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer in your 10th house of career. So this is really about healing through self-harmony, and that the more that you get into balance with yourself, the better you can actually heal partnerships, and you can also expand when it comes to your career. That is the change and the transformation. The psychological, the financial, the intimacy impact is what is going to be kind of the aftermath of that. I feel like this is a full moon that's about closure. I also think that this can be very transformative for some of you guys. There could be some positive big money things happening for partnerships. If you've been waiting to get a lump sum or settle something, or you're cashing out on an investment, this could be the time for it. But identity balances in relationships and professional growth are going to be very loud. So it's a good time to release fears when you have a full moon in the 8th house, affirm yourself, and obviously advance your ambitions when it comes to your career. Be willing to take risks and to make changes when it comes to how you're showing up in the world professionally. All right, so let's see, what does Libra need to know about this full moon in Taurus? The card that I get is the Ace of Swords. Speak your truth, Libra. There's something that you have to say. There's some realization that's kind of coming up for you. Professional negotiations, contracts, anything to do with writing, with publishing, connections that also deal with communications and making big announcements, which is possible. There could be important tax or kind of financial documents that are kind of coming in that you're going to have to review as well. And I think that this is just about feeling heard or being seen. And not even so much professionally, it can be in your relationships that you're craving that. So good luck, Libra, and let me know what happens with that Ace of Swords. All right, so we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. This is going to be the full moon in Taurus for you guys, taking place in your opposite sign, your 7th house, which is about marriage, partnerships, your marketplace, and relationships with other people. So if you guys have a birthday happening around the full moon, like the 4th, 5th, or 6th, this is a big deal because that energy of the full moon is going to reverberate through your solar return all year. So make sure you check that out and see what it means. But the 7th house is partnerships. It's opposing the sun in the 1st house, which is going to be about you and also your identity and themes revolving around your career and your personal goals. Now, Venus is the ruler, and she is in your 12th house of kind of what's hidden, subconscious, healing, or behind the scenes. And she is opposing Chiron in your 6th house of health and habits and squaring, she's squaring Jupiter in Cancer in your 9th house of travel, philosophy, and your beliefs. So there's a lot of stuff going on in houses that are more kind of about learning, traveling, communicating, and kind of learning about healing. And this could be about emotional healing because Jupiter is the focal point. But I think what you're going to see come through is that there can be, partnership release. So there could be big definitive turning points at the full moon in your 7th house. Are we staying together? Are we going to the next step? Are we just meeting each other? Have we kind of, get into a point where we're going to go our separate ways? And this is about subconscious harmony or the need for closeness and relationship. That's really teaching you that you need to heal your routines. That if you're feeling like love is at a distance, is it your habits? Is it your work schedule? Are there things health-wise that's keeping you from being able to be closer in relationships? And also the subconscious kind of harmony, healing the routines through changes in your beliefs and having an expansion there. So I predict for Scorpio risings that the full moon in Taurus is definitely relational culminations. I think there can be inner peace transformations. Health and philosophies can also shift revolving around love and money. And if it's time to let go of a partnership, you'll notice it'll happen naturally around this time. However, many of you guys can actually heal habits, expand horizons, and increase the likelihood of either strengthening a bond or meeting someone new. So let's take a look, Scorpio. Let's see. What do we need to know? I'm looking at Mars in opposition to Uranus. Definitely some money stuff. It's like what you're spending versus what other people have or want. And it's not even so much about money. It can be your values versus another person's values. And you're kind of realizing that you guys are trying to find the middle ground regarding these topics. All right, so the card that I get for Scorpio and Scorpio rising is the Judgment card. I kind of feel like if this has been a long time coming, like now it's coming back up for evaluation. especially knowing that Venus is in the late degrees of Libra. It can be that there are some relational things that are really cycling out. Obviously, Venus will be in your sign soon, so that can be quite good for bringing new love in. But I feel like, you know, Uranus going back into your 7th house of relationships here soon means that you're up for one final several month rumble in the relationship department, and it's going to feel like a make or break. I also think that the Judgment card is saying some of the events that happen revolving around the full moon are going to be quite definitive. Some of you guys will build together stronger, but there is a need to really reevaluate and reassess what habits are actually getting in the way or what scheduling issues from being closer to another person or meeting your forever person. So let me know what happens, Scorpio. I hope it's a good one for you guys. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to experience a full moon in Taurus taking place in your natal 6th house. And the 6th house deals obviously with health, healing, your schedule, your daily routine, your pets, and anything revolving around your office space or your coworkers. Now, this is the house of dealing with health and ailments, and it's going to oppose the sun in the 12th house of healing, kind of being on your own, reflecting, taking time to rest and kind of recuperate. So healing and working through things is definitely a big topic right now. Now, Venus is the ruler of this full moon. She's going to be located in Libra in your natal 11th house of friends and allies and networks. So a lot of group collaborations focusing on, you know, your goals when it comes to your health, maybe working out with friends, maybe making time to schedule to get together with other people. And Venus is not only opposing Chiron in your 5th house, but she's squaring Jupiter, your chart ruler, in Cancer in the 8th. So you're going to feel this very strongly, Sag. Even though Taurus is a sign that you don't have much in common with, I think the Jupiter square is definitely, you're going to feel it. So here's what I see for Sag risings. I see that this is about routine releases in your 6th house full moon versus your subconscious. Quite literally, how can I get out of my own way? Maybe you have support that comes in from your friends with Venus in the 11th house, but it's opposing Chiron in the 5th of Aries. With a square to Jupiter in the 8th house, this is about social harmony and reaching out to other people helps heal you creatively, and there can also be opportunities for better finance and intimacy expansion. I predict for a full moon in Taurus here that health and work can shift. Changes with your schedule, starting a new job, going to a new office space, or getting some kind of health results are possible with this full moon. And group transformation, is important because it's going to aid self-expression and self-healing. There can be lots of opportunity for shared depths with other people. And I would use this to really stabilize your daily life, especially if you've been working on your health or your work habits the last 6 months. Try to nurture your joy and explore the topic of transformation emotionally, but also when it comes to anything spiritually, that can be really important as well. Especially with Mars opposed Uranus, you guys are going to be like, I'm learning to respond to things in a healthier manner, right? Or I'm managing, my health and my habits much better. And if I'm having relational issues, I'm not just going to fall back into old patterns. I'm really going to do the necessary physical and emotional work to stay kind of in balance. The card that I got for you guys is the Ace of Cups. Great card. I think that this is talking about putting a little bit more love and emphasis into your routines. I think that it's about finding ways to kind of really enjoy the 6th house. I mean, the 6th house is cleaning the baseboards, mopping the floors, walking the dog, doing your laundry, things that don't sound glamorous, but finding ways to indulge in that, right? It's like, well, maybe you turn it into like a little ritual and routine and you clean the house, but you put out fresh flowers, or you're eating healthy, but you're still finding ways to have some of the foods that you like. You're just, making them yourselves. Maybe it's about enjoying the way that you're working out, not feeling like you're hitting the gym and doing cardio, but you're doing like a dance class or something that's going to be more kind of like, that you enjoy, or something that's a little bit more indulgent. And the Ace of Cups is your relationship to something. So Venus, I think, is getting highlighted in the 11th house, where it's like, what are your relational goals? What are your health goals? How can you make time for those things? And to really be on top of your health and habits, knowing that you're about to have a Mercury retrograde in your sign, knowing that you're also about to see this full moon in the 6th house, where focusing on your health is going to be extra important for the next 6 weeks. So you have to stay within a routine, okay? So make grounding a part of that routine and look for opportunities for maybe there to be some love and connection in the workspace, better relationships also, and maybe meeting people if you're socializing. Good luck, Sag. All right, we've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to have a full moon in Taurus taking place in a fellow sister earth sign in your 5th house. Anything 13, 14, 15 degrees of Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you will receive a trine from this full moon, and I think you guys will like it. Obviously, the full moon in the 5th house is bringing up the topics of what is kind of coming to fruition with love, romance, big themes involving your children if you have kids. Certainly Capricorn and Capricorn risings can be getting pregnant. They can be family planning. There could be opportunities for romance and conclusions of major creative projects and things that you have been working on. Now, this opposes the sun in Scorpio in your 11th house, so it's about how you're able to show other people what you're creating or what you're growing. Ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the 10th house of career and your status. So if you're an artist, if you're a creative, if you're somebody who also just really thrives off of like getting support and recognition from other people professionally, I think it's going to be pretty good for you guys. So what you're going to find is that it's about creative releases and what you can show and who you can connect with in a group sense. Now, Venus in the 10th is bringing harmony and lots of beauty and support in your career. However, she's opposing Chiron in your 4th house where there's some home and family rifts or relational issues going on. It's also squaring Jupiter in your 7th house of relationships, which I don't really think is all that bad. This could be a supportive partner, a therapist, an astrologer, somebody who's trying to help you navigate some of the complex challenges emotionally and on the home front and be really focused on how you can be showing up and being your best when it comes to your career and nurturing the relationships that are going on in a professional sense. Easier said than done, obviously, but career harmony actually heals home wounds, and this will come through partnership expansion. So working with a therapist, an astrologer, a coach, maybe even a spouse to help you kind of navigate some of the home and family balance can be really beneficial. I do predict that you will find that a romantic kind of happening is taking place. Maybe you're meeting somebody, there's a really significant date. Maybe it means that there's hobby culminations where you've had a side hustle and now it's turning into like a full-blown business. Certainly pregnancy and your ambitions transforming when it comes to home and family relations. And I think for some of you guys, it's definitely got a signature of like parenting related themes. I would say for this full moon, ground yourself, have fun. I think like Taurus in the 5th house is like cooking classes. It could be doing aromatherapy workshops. It could be painting, jewelry making, things like that. Especially if this is something that interests you, that you're wanting to incorporate more into your professional work, that might be something that brings you some joy. And I do think that this is about finding balance when it comes to your public life and nurturing some of your closest connections. All right, so what does my Capricorn and Capricorn risings need to know about this full moon in Taurus? Oh, we got the Knight of Cups again. So certainly this could be relational. I like the Knight of Cups with the full moon in the 5th house. I think for many of you guys, it could be good news if you have a daughter. It could also be a romantic connection to a water sign. So it can be a Scorpio or Pisces or a Cancer. Or somebody who wears their heart on their sleeve, an opportunity for new love or romance to arrive, or feeling kind of swept up in a project that you're like falling in love with. But I think it's about maybe taking risks, taking creative risks. And this is also about really committing yourself to, showing other people what you create and what you love, even if it's not like what you do for a living. If it's like putting it out there on social media, showing other people what you've painted, showing other people, what accomplishments your kids are having, and really feeling a sense of pride and really overjoyed and potentially even like falling in love with something or someone. So I love that for you guys, especially in a romantic horoscope, especially with Jupiter being in your 7th. I love that because you might be feeling like, wow, things are challenging emotionally on the home front, but like this person came into my life and like now I'm also having more success at work. And they can actually help you find the balance between those two things. Good luck, Capricorn. Let me know what happens. All right, for my Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you guys are going to experience a full moon in Taurus in your natal 4th house. Obviously 13, 14, 15 degrees of Aquarius placements. You guys are going to feel the effects of this particular full moon as the moon in the 4th house, which is full, is bringing your attention to your roots, your home, your family, and your living situation, as well as the past. You are also going to see the moon oppose the sun in the 10th house of your career and reputation and work. And it is ruled by Venus, which is in your 9th house and a fellow sister air sign. which is really highlighting travel, your beliefs about home and family, long distance relationships, legal matters, maybe family coming to visit, maybe planning trips, something going on there. Now, Venus will oppose Chiron in your third house of communication in the mind. So there's some communication and relational dilemmas you're working through. And it's squaring Jupiter in Cancer in your sixth house. So when we put it all together, basically home releases. And that's coming up versus, the action that's going on in your career. There's about to be a Mercury retrograde there, so some of that stuff's getting kind of worked up. You can feel very kind of emotional about how that's impacting you or your home or your family. And with the Venus opposed Chiron square Jupiter, this is about belief, harmony, healing through routine and expansions. Making sure you're eating well, making sure you're taking time for movement, making sure that you're improving your daily emotional health and your habits, learning maybe to start journaling or going on a walking routine, or maybe just improving something about your schedule or the location of where you're working. I do think that, you will find that there can be family shifts with a full moon in the fourth house. So finding out you're moving, selling your house, finishing a renovation. The moon in the fourth house is at home here, and it's connected to home and family organizations. You might feel like there's just a lot more chatter and kind of getting things done around the house and trying to kind of fix odds and ends. It can be great for interior decorating. It can be also really great for anything revolving around looking into property or, buying art for a space. And Venus in the ninth makes me feel like it's about you learning more how to integrate more of your studies in these departments. So if you've been studying, interior design, or maybe you want to bring some kind of cultural influence from other places in the world into home, you could do that as well. Sometimes it's about getting out of the house, right? Because it's opposing the sun. So it could also mean that there's been a lot of togetherness. You're trying to get out of the house, and then ultimately you'll kind of come back. So if you're traveling, that would make sense. I would watch for family shifts, major shifts in your philosophies and how that's kind of changing and transforming how you communicate. And that could be about home and family or health. And I would focus on stabilizing your roots, doing some grounding exercises, completing a home project, definitely refining your emotional habits, and keeping an open mind about what home and family means to you. All right, so what does Aquarius and Aquarius rising need to know for this full moon in Taurus? Can you tell me what advice you have? Oh, you got the Magician. Getting crafty, I feel like with the Mercury retrograde coming up in your 10th house here soon, there's a lot of changes at work, and it's like, okay, work is kind of crazy, but what routines or what things do I have at home that makes me feel grounded? Do I keep plants that I know I have to water regularly? Do I have a family that I need to kind of carve out more time for? Do I have a home project that helps me kind of take my mind off of some of the changes that's happening at work? And really getting creative and also being the creator of your own reality. So what are you manifesting? Are you manifesting a new home? Are you planning a garden for the spring? Do you have a vision, an idea for, some kind of home project that you have or that you're wanting to put together? I think now is a good time to start thinking about that and getting creative, but also optimistic with just exactly how that can come full circle. Good luck. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, you guys will experience a full moon in Taurus taking place in your natal third house of the mind, communication, learning, and short distance travel. Now, when you have a full moon here, it's always opposing the sun in Scorpio, which is in your ninth house of, beliefs, travel, legal matters, education. And it looks like it's going to be ruled by Venus, which is in your eighth house of other people's resources, intimacy, and secrets. Well, Venus in the eighth house is great for, more sex, more intimacy, better finances, but it is opposing Chiron. So there is a sense of some of you guys having to make some big changes and transformations in intimacy or joint finances. It's also simultaneously squaring Jupiter in Cancer, which is obviously one of your rulers. And this is bringing up, I think, a lot of emotions revolving around dating and intimacy, a lot of conversations and talks revolving around money and kids, or how much money or time you're investing into creative projects. So kind of putting that all together, I do think that we're going to see there are some changes in the way that you communicate, some changes in the way that you think, and also in your beliefs. And with the square between Venus, Chiron, and Jupiter, This is about better intimacy and finding that you can get into your flow when it comes to harmony in dating. And this is also about healing your values through some kind of creative expansion. Now, be careful with risking money you don't have. This could also mean like lavish expenses on gadgets with the full moon in the third house, booking trips, buying cars. And I think a lot of you guys are going to be trying to kind of think more positively and communicate more positively and trying to kind of boost some kind of income or something that could be through a website, sales, or travel, or something online. I do think that this is a full moon that can also bring up connections to relational rifts with neighbors or with siblings. And I expect there to be some major mental culminations and conversations revolving shared resources, which can transform your self-worth as well as your joy and your playtime. Definitely ground out your ideas, write things down, maybe create a list, release fears, and focusing on trusting your intuition and nurturing something that you're growing or you're creating. What does Pisces need to know about this? I look at Venus in conjunct Saturn and Neptune in your sign, and I'm like, you have all these hidden like resources, all these good ideas, like there's all of these like solutions for kind of navigating a creative project or a financial situation, but you have to be willing to speak up and say something, or you have to be willing to kind of put those ideas in motion or kind of like pitch them to someone or something. So the card that I got for you is the Page of Coins, which means that this is the beginning process of that. Maybe a lot of this is going to be about seeking out some kind of financial solutions to fund some of your creative projects or ideas. Pages can be children, so I'm looking at Jupiter in the 5th house, so it can be very much like a project that you're giving birth to. It can be about dealing with a kid. And support that comes from earth signs, so Tauruses, Virgos, Capricorns. And I think that this is about investing and learning more. So learning more about what you invest yourself in. It can be about financial investments. You could be learning about borrowing, lending, saving, and trying to maybe renegotiate things revolving around joint finances or debt. That could be something else here. But slow and steady wins the race, and maybe you're finally starting to see some of the research or what you've been learning about your creative habits or about your financial situation now finally starting to pay off. Good luck, Pisces. I hope it's a good full moon for you guys. All right, guys. Well, obviously that was the full moon in Taurus. It's a beauty. It's going to be illuminating our paths, and remember that this is about really grounding ourselves with gratitude and releasing with grace. We don't want to have a death grip on anything with the sun in opposition to the moon. So embrace that Venusian call to balance, beauty, and depth. I hope that many of you guys achieve the abundance that can come through with this full moon, and it really flows and it helps you better honor your self-worth. If you guys like this video, if you resonated with it, if you found it helpful, please give me a thumbs up and like this video. Consider sharing on your socials, and while you're there, follow me on X at BTB Astro, and make sure you're subscribed so you can see more of my future videos. But I'd love to hear how this full moon plays out for you guys. What are you feeling? What are you anticipating? What's coming up? Drop your rising sign below and let me know how the full moon in Taurus is impacting your chart. And if you guys would like to get a reading on this, definitely check out my links below. Go to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. You can book a personalized reading with me. I'm now taking bookings in January and February of 2026. I'm happy to help you guys, or maybe I'll see you on one of the lives. And if you guys want to learn tarot or astrology, check out my courses. Sign up for my newsletter while you're there. I'm getting ready to drop my tarot deck, the Sword and the Rose Tarot, here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to have new calendars and all kinds of other things for Cyber Monday and Black Friday. So if you've been waiting to take my courses, this might be your lucky month. Enjoy the full moon. I'll see you guys here back on Thursday, and I hope you enjoy this video. I'll see you soon.